During the making of Snow White, special meetings were convened where the artist discussed all aspects of the dwarf's design and personalities. Walt Disney did not usually attend these special dwarf meetings himself, but his opinions were often entered into the discussion by the other participants. What you are about to hear is a reenactment of a compendium of remarks from those meetings as they were transcribed back at the time that Snow White was being made.
The purpose of this meeting is to work up the characteristics of the dwarfs. There are 7 of them, and it is indeed difficult to get a hold of each. Therefore, we will take one at a time. The opening of the mind sequence. This is the first time you see the dwarfs. We want their characteristics. We want to get the type of each swing and the way he carries himself.
Walt feels very strongly about the point that we've got to keep these little fellows cute. Take Dopey, for example. The way he acts, he isn't a goof in the sense that he's a nut. It's more like he's a little guy who hasn't grown up. A cute little elvish guy, childlike in his reaction to things.
They're practically all the same height, with the exception of Dopey, who's a little shorter, and Doc, who's a little taller.
There's a certain connection with the personality that Walt mentions that has some bearing on the way he's built. Doc isn't fat for the sake of being fat. He's designed stout to give a pompous flair.
In other words, make him have a dignified carriage by rounding him out as though he has a big stomach and carries it like a chest. Marching from the mine, would you have them walking sprightly? I wouldn't. They're tired after the day's work.
I feel that the dwarf should have a faster tempo in walking. I would like to get an opinion whether we should drive toward the human angle of the dwarfs walking, or whether the dwarfs should swing their fannies from side to side.
Seems to me this business is caricature.
We don't want their actions to be too much like men. Take the stiltedness out of the action, but retain that feeling of waddle.
I think a duck is an excellent basic thing to build from. As a duck walks along, he waddles from side to side. If we can get a feeling of basic awkwardness, we might retain a dwarf-like quality.
Doc should have a lot of punch to his personality.
This first scene of Doc is a good example where it does bring out the stuttering dialogue very nicely.
Our house! The lit slide! The light slit!
The main characteristic of Doc is that he's always mixing up words.
Yes, we'll sneak up. Come on, man. Follow me.
He always catches himself and corrects himself. He uses eccentric hand movement.
I think the dwarf house should be built in proportion to their size.
In other words, everything inside the house should be cut down to scale to suit the size of the dwarfs.
They are small guys, and they should have a larger head size. What I want to bring out is that the arms should be shorter rather than longer. If the arms are too long, we're going to lose our dwarfs.
One of us has got to go down and chase it up. Up, down.
In regard to the looseness of Dopey's shirt around his neck, we found that Dopey's neck is not to be played up except in cases where he's stretching.
He has no beard, and thus when he stretches, he has more of a chance to show his neck.
Dopey is the sort of character that is dressed up in cast-off clothing. His coat sleeves are much too long and hang over his hands. Everything about him gives this floppy feeling, which is quite amusing.
With this scene, the door opens just enough to show Dopey's one eye appear in the crack.
How would it be, instead of the eye peering around, if you pulled that old cartoon gag where the head and eye go through quick movements? What would be the objection of showing part of his face but have it colored dark?
It is in shadow. And Dopey has light blue eyes that have a vacant look that you get with the light blue color.
Now, don't tell me who you are. Let me guess.
Now, tell them about the general characteristics of the bunch.
I think you might make a good comparison of Happy and Doc, two different types physically.
Doc has medium-large eyes with glasses. Happy's nose is much flatter.
Happy is more of a barrel shape.
Your next problem is going to be Sneezy, Bashful, and Sleepy, who are average weight and have to be distinguished from each other. Bashful's eyes are going to be big brown eyes with lots of lashes. We always thought Bashful could never look straight at the thing and face it.
Sleepy's arms are limp, and he has a limp hat. Walt liked this idea.
Sneezy's eyes are small on account of the cold in his nose.
Let's go to Grumpy and leave these three. I sometimes see him with his hands folded.
Grumpy is having his head buried in his shoulders. Large snoot and a hat fitting close to his eyes. He's rather cocky.
The main thing is to get the relation of Doc and Grumpy. They are two outstanding characters. They are the conflict of the two types.
Just standing there sputtering like a dooder ball. Who's sputtering like a spoon? Who's gonna... Oh, shut up and tell her to get out.
I think inasmuch as we've had a thorough discussion of it now, we have an idea in our minds as to what we'd like to see. It should be taken up with Walt.
Hooray!